Nearly 2 decades together painted this picture of rock-solid stability. A marriage that survived fame, long distance, and non-stop pressure. That's exactly why so many people were straight-up stunned when public records revealed a custody setup giving Keith Urban just 59 scheduled days a year with his daughters after separating from Nicole Kidman. At first look, that number hits kinda hard. It sparks an awkward question people keep whispering. Why would a dad agree to a limit like that? This isn't some messy scandal, and it's not about failure or pointing fingers. What actually happened was way more intentional, calculated, and controlled than the headline makes it seem. If you're into calm, fact-based breakdowns that skip the hype and focus on what really matters, consider subscribing. Why the number 59 shocked people. When 59 days went public, it landed heavy because numbers feel final. To a lot of people, it sounded less like a custody plan and more like a verdict. Once reports confirmed the parenting structure, that reaction spread fast. What really triggered people wasn't the legal setup, but the contrast. Almost 20 years of marriage followed by a number that looks wildly uneven created an emotional gap that begged for answers. Without context, the conclusion feels obvious. Something must have gone wrong. According to court documents cited by People magazine, Nicole Kidman was named the primary residential parent, while Keith Urban was assigned 59 custodial days per year in the finalized agreement. The shock didn't come from the arrangement itself, but from how unfamiliar custody math is to most folks. Days get translated as involvement, even though legally the count is about residency and overnights, not communication or flexibility. Celebrity expectations only made it louder. People assume money means equal time, private jets, and unlimited access. When reality doesn't line up with that belief, the number feels way harsher than it really is. That's where the confusion starts. One isolated number, stripped of process and structure, triggers emotion before any explanation can even breathe. How custody time is actually calculated. Custody math works nothing like most people imagine. Courts don't just split the year down the middle and call it fair. They focus on residential custody, meaning where the kids primarily live, go to school, and keep their daily rhythm. The parent with primary residence naturally racks up most of the overnights. The other parent's time shows up as scheduled parenting time. That includes weekends, certain holidays, school breaks, and specific periods during the year. When you add those up, the total can look tiny compared to a full calendar, even if that parent is still active in decisions and communication. This difference matters because custody numbers are about stability, not emotional worth. Courts prioritize predictability, especially for older kids, to avoid constant back and forth. One main home can cut down disruption during school years, regardless of how committed or capable both parents are. There's also the work reality. Jobs that require non-stop travel create real limits on overnight scheduling. Touring schedules, international gigs, and unpredictable locations make fixed residency hard to lock down legally. That doesn't erase involvement, but it does change how time is officially counted. So when people see the final number, they are seeing the result of a legal formula, not a measure of love. It reflects structure, logistics, and routine. Without that framework, it looks cold. With context, it's clear the math hides way more than it shows. The decision to avoid a custody battle. Public records and solid reporting show both parents chose to settle custody privately instead of dragging things into a long legal war. That choice matters more than most people realize, because custody fights rarely stay on paper. Once litigation kicks off, it can snowball into months of hearings, temporary orders, evaluations, and non-stop negotiations, creating chaos long before anything is finalized. High-conflict custody battles often put kids right in the crossfire. Schedules flip, routines get wrecked, and even if details stay private, kids usually feel the tension around where they'll live and who decides what. Courts know prolonged disputes can mess with kids emotionally, which is why cooperative solutions are pushed when both parents are capable and there are no safety issues. What stands out here isn't a power grab, but the lack of escalation. There were no explosive filings turning custody into a public showdown. No drawn-out courtroom drama splashed across headlines. That silence points to a conscious choice to keep things contained instead of blowing them up. Restraint in custody talks doesn't equal indifference. A lot of the time, it means accepting a setup that lowers stress and limits legal pressure. Cooperation often demands compromises the public never sees and easily misreads once the final schedule drops. The biggest clue is what didn't happen. By skipping a custody battle altogether, both parents minimized disruption and protected stability during a phase that could have gone completely off the rails. Stability over symmetry. Family courts aren't built to chase symmetry just for appearances. Their main goal is stability. That means consistent schooling, predictable routines, and an environment where kids can live daily life without constant adjustment. Especially for older kids, continuity usually outweighs splitting time perfectly evenly. One primary residence cuts down on non-stop movement. It limits travel during school weeks and helps protect academics, friendships, and privacy. Equal time might look fair on paper, but frequent transitions can quietly raise stress, even in peaceful families. Courts usually see a stable home base as protective, not limiting. This doesn't shrink the other parent's role. It simply clarifies where daily life is centered, while still making room for meaningful parenting time through set schedules, holidays, and longer breaks. Flexibility also matters. With one main residence, parenting time outside that structure can shift without blowing up routine. Tweaks around school calendars, work demands, or travel are easier when the core setup stays solid. Seen this way, the arrangement reflects priorities, not punishment. The goal isn't equal-looking numbers, but a life that actually works. Courts consistently back outcomes that protect routine, reduce disruption, and support long-term steadiness over setups that just balance the math. Quick pause: if you value calm, fact-based explanations without exaggeration, consider subscribing. Keith Urban's touring reality. A huge factor shaping this custody setup is the reality of touring. As a global music artist, Keith Urban runs on a schedule that's straight-up unpredictable. Tours mean constant movement across cities, countries, and time zones, often planned far ahead, but regularly tweaked because of production issues, travel logistics, or contracts. That kind of lifestyle makes shared physical custody tricky in very specific ways. Overnights, school drop-offs, and week-to-week consistency are hard to define when a parent's location changes every few days. Even with private travel, keeping a fixed residence during active tours is rarely realistic. Courts factor this in when judging long-term stability for kids. And here's the key part: this is about logistics, not love. Touring musicians can still be deeply involved through communication, coordination, and focus time together outside formal schedules. However, legal custody setups are built around where kids actually live and sleep over, not around flexibility or virtual check-ins. Shared custody works best when both parents can realistically stay rooted in one place for long stretches of time. When that can't happen, courts usually create plans that reduce disruption to school and everyday routines. In those situations, the traveling parent's time is often bundled into specific windows instead of being evenly spread across the calendar. This method isn't about punishing mobility, it's about accounting for it. The schedule reflects what can be reliably maintained, not what just looks fair on paper. Getting that difference is key before reading fewer custody days as absence or lack of interest. The structure follows practicality, not judgment. Nicole Kidman's work structure compared. On the flip side, the way Nicole Kidman's career works plays out differently in custody evaluations. Film and television projects are usually planned in clear blocks. Productions start and finish at specific locations, which often leaves long stretches of stability between jobs. That kind of structure matters when courts look at day-to-day consistency. Acting can mean long hours, but it typically revolves around one home base during filming. Once production wraps, there can be sizable stretches with no required travel. That predictability makes it easier to set up a primary residence without constantly interrupting school or routine. Courts care less about how busy a parent is and more about how predictable their presence can be. A block-style schedule makes it easier to plan school calendars, extracurriculars, and home life. That clarity cuts down uncertainty, which courts usually see as a win for kids. The contrast between touring work and block-based work often matters in custody arrangements, not because one career gets special treatment, but because one allows steadier residency. This difference is logistical, not emotional. It's about how work structures collide with daily life, not personal preference. When you look at it that way, the custody setup makes more sense. It's shaped by how each parent's professional demands translate into physical availability. The end result is a framework that prioritizes routine and consistency, shifting attention away from feelings and toward what actually works. The quiet agreement behind closed doors. Public court records and reporting show that both parents agreed to waive child support and spousal support as part of the settlement. That matters because it points to cooperation, not conflict. In high-profile divorces, money is usually where things get messy. Here, it didn't. Waiving support doesn't mean resources were lacking or ignored. Both people are independently established, with long careers and serious earnings. In that situation, removing ongoing financial obligations can simplify things and cut down future friction. Courts often approve these choices when they are voluntary, and when the children's needs are clearly covered by existing resources. This kind of agreement also signals mutual trust. Financial disputes tend to reignite conflict long after custody is settled. By locking these terms in early and clearly, both sides reduce the risk of future legal drama. That restraint lines up with the broader pattern seen throughout the custody process. It's important not to mistake calm outcomes for a loss of leverage. Choosing not to chase support doesn't equal weakness or giving in. In many cooperative divorces, it shows a deliberate effort to separate financial independence from parenting duties. The lack of ongoing financial conflict reinforces the bigger theme of this case. Decisions were designed to minimize long-term entanglement and public tension. Instead of leaving loose ends that could blow up later, both parents went for clarity. That choice keeps the focus on parenting, not enforcement. This agreement didn't make headlines because it wasn't dramatic. But that quiet vibe is exactly why it matters. It shows a shared intention to resolve things cleanly, without turning private choices into constant legal pressure. Why fame changes custody math? Custody arrangements look different when families live under non-stop public attention. Fame brings factors most households never deal with, like security needs, privacy concerns, and constant travel. Courts factor all of that in when deciding what stability really looks like. Schooling is a huge consideration. High-profile families often choose schools built around privacy and controlled environments. Keeping consistency there becomes a big deal, and frequent moves can wreck that stability. Courts usually favor setups that limit unnecessary movement once a routine is locked in. Security is another piece of the puzzle. Travel for public figures often requires advanced planning, protection, and coordination that regular families don't have to think about. Those layers make spontaneous schedule changes tougher and affect where overnight stays are realistically possible. Visibility also matters. Courts try to reduce unnecessary public exposure for kids in famous families. Keeping residency centered in one main location can help limit attention and preserve some sense of normal life, even when parents stay busy with demanding careers. Because of all this, celebrity custody cases, aren't easily comparable to everyday ones. The math includes factors most families never face. That's why arrangements like this can feel strange, or even unfair without context. Understanding how fame reshapes the framework helps explain why standard assumptions don't really apply. The structure is driven by privacy, safety, and routine, not vibes or public opinion. Quick reminder: subscribe for thoughtful breakdowns that focus on context, not headlines. The emotional cost no one sees. Even when custody arrangements are cooperative and handled calmly, they still carry emotional weight. Legal clarity doesn't erase the personal impact of separation, especially when parenting time gets formalized in ways that feel restrictive. That tension can exist quietly, without public fights and without anyone being the bad guy. Cooperative outcomes often demand emotional self-control. Choosing not to escalate means swallowing disappointment privately instead of venting it through the courts. That kind of restraint is rarely visible from the outside, which is why calm resolutions are sometimes mistaken for being easy or painless. In reality, accepting structure still means adjusting, losing physical closeness, and reshaping daily rhythms. It's also crucial to separate emotion from blame. Feeling the weight of an outcome doesn't mean regret about the process or dissatisfaction with the intention behind it. Many parents agree to arrangements they believe are best for their children, while still dealing with the very human difficulty of being physically apart more than they'd want. This is where public narratives usually get way too simplified. Headlines lock in on numbers and outcomes, but they totally miss the inner cost of transition. Parenting doesn't stop, it keeps going through communication, planning, and just being present whenever time allows, but the absence during everyday, routine moments can still hit hard. Acknowledging this emotional layer doesn't mean turning it into a drama. It just means recognizing that cooperation doesn't magically remove feelings from the mix. A lack of conflict shouldn't be confused with a lack of impact. Both things can exist at the same time, quietly, low-key, and without any spectacle. Why Keith didn't push back. Public reporting and common legal patterns suggest that Keith Urban accepted the custody setup intentionally instead of fighting it. In a lot of situations, pushing back in court can create arrangements that look more fair on paper, but come with long-term stress that sticks around way past the final ruling. Long legal battles often wreck working relationships between parents. Even after they are settled, the leftover tension can make communication tougher and cooperation shakier. For parents who know they'll stay connected through years of shared responsibility, protecting that relationship can matter more than tweaking a schedule. There's also the real-world factor of long-term flexibility. Cooperative agreements leave space to adjust as time goes on, while hostile outcomes can trap families in rigid court-enforced structures. Accepting an initial framework can actually protect future adaptability, especially as kids grow up and their needs change. Another factor is prioritization. Fighting over extra counted days doesn't always equal better results for children. Some parents decide to focus on making the time they do have more present, consistent, and emotionally steady, instead of expanding it through conflict. Looked at this way, the decision not to push back shows long-term thinking. It points to a choice to protect relationships, keep cooperation intact, and value quality over raw numbers. That choice might not look bold in public, but privately, it's often the more sustainable move. What 59 days doesn't show? That number only shows how certain types of time are counted in a custody agreement. It doesn't reflect the full range of parenting that happens outside official overnights. Phone calls, video chats, shared decisions, and constant communication don't get counted in days, but they are still part of everyday involvement. Custody schedules also include flexibility that never makes headlines. Travel exceptions, longer holiday stretches, school breaks, and special arrangements can all increase time together beyond what the basic count suggests. Most of that is handled privately and shifts as circumstances change. Another thing missing is continuity. Parenting doesn't shut off when one parent isn't on the schedule. Planning, coordination, emotional support, and showing up for important moments keep happening no matter where residency is logged. Court documents focus on structure, not connection. The headline number creates this false sense of finality that doesn't match how these arrangements actually work. It's just a snapshot from a legal framework built for clarity, not a full picture of daily life. Without context, it pushes conclusions the documents themselves don't even back up. Reframing the number means understanding its limits. It explains how time is categorized, not how relationships function. Once that difference is clear, attention shifts away from what seems missing and toward what continues outside the margins of official counts. The bigger picture. Taken as a whole, this custody outcome wasn't about losing access or being shut out of parenting. It was about choosing a process that minimized disruption and avoided a drawn-out conflict during a major family shift. Independent confirmation from ABC News shows the divorce was finalized without public courtroom drama, with both sides agreeing to the custody framework and financial terms. That context changes how the entire situation should be seen. Instead of framing it as a loss, it reflects a decision guided by long-range thinking. Prolonged custody battles often cause damage that lingers long after the paperwork is signed. So when you circle back to the original question, why would a father accept this setup, the answer gets clearer. The choice favored stability, preserved cooperation, and dodged a process that could have brought years of tension. Custody often gets judged by numbers, but those numbers rarely explain intent. Here, the decisions point to restraint instead of conflict, and to protecting routine rather than winning optics. When the noise fades out, what's left isn't a story of absence, but a deliberate effort to keep family matters controlled, steady, and focused on what lasts beyond the paperwork. The bottom line. When you step back from the headline number, the picture changes. Custody is often measured by symmetry and totals, but those metrics almost never capture intention. What really matters is why a structure exists, and what it safeguards over time. In this case, restraint mattered more than visibility, and stability mattered more than appearances. The choices made here reflect long-term thinking. Avoiding extended conflict, reducing disruption, and maintaining cooperation can demand personal sacrifice that never shows up in legal summaries. Choosing a quieter arrangement can shield children from years of tension that don't magically disappear once court orders are signed. This isn't a story about losing access or walking away. It's about picking a path that lowers pressure and keeps the focus on what continues after the paperwork ends. Parenting doesn't stop at residency counts, and commitment isn't fully measured by calendars. Rethinking how custody is judged means looking past numbers and toward outcomes that actually last. Sometimes the strongest choices are the least dramatic ones, made intentionally, without noise. If you're into calm, fact-based breakdowns that value clarity over hype, consider subscribing for more thoughtful discussions like this.